This happened a few months ago. I was 32 and just beginning my career as a marine biologist. I got hired to help on this new submarine, the Nautilus 7. I was excited to explore the ocean's depths. The crew seemed nice, but I felt oddly nervous. Maybe I should have prepared more, but I didn't want to seem out of place. I have never stopped thinking about that day that we set off early in the morning. The ocean looked calm, but I could sense something wrong. We descended into the water. I monitored the sonar readings. I felt something odd. I noticed strange flickering lines on the display. At first, I thought it was a glitch. I brushed it off, but I could see the others were uneasy. Then, the first malfunction happened. The lights flickered, and a low hum echoed in the metal halls. I glanced at my colleagues. They shared worried looks. I tried to focus on my work, but I began sweating. I felt like I was the only one who didn't understand what was happening. That we went deeper, but the odd things didn't stop. Shadows danced around us from the portholes. Some crew members claimed they saw figures moving in the dark water. I convinced myself it was just the pressure making me see things, but my heart raced with every strange noise. One day, I was flipping through old logbooks in the control room when I found entries warning against diving too deep in certain areas. The warnings were vague, but chilling. They mentioned uncharted territories. I should have been scared, but my curiosity pushed me to keep reading. Each dive brought more shadows and malfunctions. The crew began to whisper while casting wide-eyed glances. I felt isolated, like I was watching a movie unraveling around me. Then it happened on our third dive. I stood at the porthole, staring into the blackness. I swear I saw a shadow moving. My heart felt heavy. I wanted to shout, but fear held me back. I turned to see if someone else saw it, but nobody was there. Did I imagine it? I asked myself if I was losing my mind. Then I suddenly heard it. A voice that wasn't there. It whispered my name, and I froze. I turned to see if anyone else heard it. The lights flickered again. Fear twisted my stomach. I stood there, wondering what we had gotten ourselves into. Every part of my body screamed to escape, but I couldn't. I just stared into the depths. The shadows crept closer, and I started to feel like something was watching me back. I thought about the warnings in the logbooks as doubt filled my mind. I joined the crew for the next dive, but the tension was thick. I didn't know what to expect. Maybe I should have listened more closely. It wasn't about the ocean anymore. It felt like something had taken hold of us. I could only wonder what awaited us below the surface. The next day, we prepared for another dive. The atmosphere was heavy with dread. I could feel it in the way my colleagues moved. They were quieter, almost tense. As we descended, I was stuck in my own thoughts, replaying everything I had witnessed. I refused to let fear overpower my curiosity, but every flicker of the lights made my heart pound. As we reached the depth we had planned, I glanced at the sonar monitor. Strange patterns flickered again. Instead of just lines, I could see shapes forming. I told myself it was just misreadings. But the look on the engineer's face next to me told a different story. He tapped on the screen, trying to make sense of the data. "Do you see that?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He nodded, biting his lip. "It shouldn't be like this. We need to report it." But the captain ordered silence. "Just keep monitoring," he said. His tone carried an edge I hadn't noticed before. I felt a knot form in my stomach that we continued deeper, but something felt wrong. It wasn't just the sonar anymore. It was the very feel of the ocean around us. It seemed as if we were being pulled by something, a current that didn't belong in a normal dive site. Then, without warning, the lights cut out completely. We were plunged into darkness. Panic set in immediately. I fumbled for the emergency lights, but they wouldn't turn on. Murmurs erupted from the crew, growing louder in the claustrophobic space. I reached for my flashlight, its beam shaky. In the faint glow, I saw everyone's faces wide-eyed, reflecting pure fear. And then, amidst the chaos, I saw it. A shadow-like figure moving outside the porthole. "Did you see that?" I shouted, directing my flashlight toward the view. But the figure was gone. The cold darkness stretched out, mocking my disbelief. The captain's voice broke through the noise. "We need to get back to the surface now." As we began to ascend, the humming sound returned but felt stronger this time, vibrating through the metal hull. It was almost like the submarine was alive, reacting to our fear. I held my breath as the lights flickered back on, revealing an eerily calm crew. Then I caught sight of something in the monitor. It was brief, just a flash of movement. but it sent chills down my spine. I wasn't imagining things. Something was lurking in the depths, watching us. Did anyone else see that? I asked again, but the unease had returned. Nobody answered. They simply stared ahead. My heart raced. I needed to voice my concerns, but fear held me back, whispering that I wouldn't be taken seriously. And just as we broke through the surface, a loud bang echoed from outside. The entire submarine jolted, the force throwing some of us to the floor. I looked around, heart pounding, scrambling for answers. That's when I saw a brief glimpse through the porthole, a figure, unmistakable and massive, lurking just below the surface. I gasped, but nobody else seemed to notice. What just happened? Was all I could manage to think as dread washed over me. I knew, deep down, that this encounter was only the beginning. There was something down there, and it knew we were here. My heart was still racing as we settled back onto the surface. The captain ordered us to keep quiet about what we'd seen, but I could tell the tension was thick in the air. Everyone seemed to avoid eye contact, even in the safety of our submarine. As the engine idled, I felt like we were trapped in a bubble of unspoken fear. Before I could say anything, the engineer abruptly turned to me, his voice shaky. "Did you really see it? The shadow?" "Yes," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You saw it too?" He nodded slowly, his face pale. I can't shake the feeling that it was watching us. The captain cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "We've completed this dive, but we can't ignore what happened. We'll need to review the data and plan our next steps." I hesitated, then asked, "What do you think it was?" He met my gaze, his eyes hardening. "We focus on the mission. We can't jump to conclusions. We'll study the sonar readings. We may have misinterpreted something." But I wasn't convinced. Something deep within me insisted that this wasn't a mere technical glitch. I needed to know what we were dealing with. As we headed to the control room, I spotted a familiar name in the logs, a researcher who had disappeared months ago on a similar dive. My stomach twisted at the thought that we might be repeating history. Once in the control room, I examined the sonar data myself. The lines were chaotic, almost as if they were alive, responding to something we couldn't see. Then I noticed a recurring pattern, a series of coordinates that led deeper into the ocean. I felt a chill run down my spine. The coordinates didn't lead us to the planned research area. They led into uncharted territory. "What's this?" I pointed to the data. Everyone leaned in, squinting at the screen. The captain frowned. "I don't recognize it. This isn't what we expected. Shouldn't we investigate?" I asked, a mixture of curiosity and fear bubbling inside me. My thoughts raced. Perhaps there was something down there that could explain everything. "We'll look into it," the captain replied, but I saw doubt in his eyes. Just then, the intercom crackled. "Captain, we have an anomaly on the sonar. You need to see this." We all rushed to the observation deck. The engineer was staring at the screen, his face a mask of confusion. "What is it?" I asked. "There's a massive object moving toward us. It's not a ship or another sub. It's something else." I strained to get a better look. The form on the monitor was unmistakable, a colossal, shadowy entity, shifting with an unnatural grace. Then, the lights flickered again, and I felt a cold shiver. Was it real? Was it coming for us? "This isn't safe," I whispered. My instincts screamed at me to get away. The captain's eyes narrowed. "Prepare to dive again. We need to follow it." I stared at him, shock coursing through me. "Are you insane? We need to leave." But it was too late. The decision had been made. The mystery was about to plunge us into deeper, darker waters, and I feared we'd find more than we bargained for. We descended slowly, the dim lights of the sub illuminating the nothingness around us. I could still feel the tremors of panic in my gut, but defiance swirled within. We were hunting something unimaginable. What would we find in the abyss? The captain's voice broke through the tension. "All systems check. Maintain silent mode." Like a mantra, we nodded, but I could see the unease skirting across each face. Everyone was waiting for something to go wrong. As we descended deeper, the ocean around us darkened. It felt oppressive, like the water was pushing in, trying to trap us. The sonar readings were erratic, but the massive object remained on course. I realized we weren't just chasing shadows anymore. We were following something alive. I leaned over the controls, heart pounding, as the coordinates drew closer. The engineer stood next to me, nervously tapping his fingers on the console. "What do you think it wants?" I don't know, I replied, swallowing hard. I just hope it doesn't T1 us. The captain turned to face us. Stay sharp. If it comes within range, we need to be prepared. I can't help but wonder, the engineer added quietly, if whatever that thing is, it could be linked to the missing researcher. I read something about strange occurrences in this area. That thought sent a chill through me, deeper than the cold of the ocean. You think he found something? Something that got him into trouble? I don't know, the engineer said, but if we see him or what's left of him, it might not be friendly. The sonar pinged, each echo tense and sharp. Suddenly, the screen erupted with movement. A cluster of shapes darted away from us, rapidly dissipating into the surrounding darkness. My breath hitched. Was it those things we saw before? Was it just our imagination? Then, an alarm blared. The lights flickered more harshly, plunging us into near darkness. The engineer frantically banged on his console. What is happening? The captain barked orders, but the chaos was palpable. The sonar was spiking, glaring numbers oscillating wildly. I didn't know what was happening, but fear wrapped around my throat like a vice. Hold on. We're losing stability. The captain shouted. Before I could process what he meant, I felt the sub jerk violently, like we were caught in something unseen. My stomach dropped, and I braced myself against the control panel. We were in freefall, spiraling into the abyss. My heart raced. Just as suddenly as it started, everything went silent. The sub righted itself, but I could feel the pressure building, something lurking just outside the lights. Did anyone see where it went? I asked breathlessly. The captain looked grim, scanning the now still sonar. No, but I don't like this. We could be that S when I saw it. A shadow flitted past a viewing window, slipping out of the light and into the dark. A rush of cold terror washed over me. There was something down here with us. Whatever it was more than just an anomaly. Get ready, I whispered, clutching the edge of my seat. We weren't alone. The silence was deafening. I strained to hear anything other than my own heartbeat. My fingers tightened around the control panel, and I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching us from the depths. The flickering lights only added to the growing dread. Status report. The captain barked, trying to regain some semblance of order. The engineer fumbled with his console. All systems operational, but the sonar is still picking up strange readings. We're not alone down here. It's stalking us, I whispered, barely able to contain the fear creeping into my voice. The captain shot me a look, sharp and serious. Keep your eyes peeled, he said, adjusting the sub-S trajectory. We glided forward, but the darkness seemed to close in around us. Suddenly, the sonar let out a shrill ping, and the screen lit up with chaotic shapes. They were moving quickly, circling us, pulling away just as fast as the sub approached. I leaned closer, deciphering the form on the screen. They looked like fish, but distorted, stretched out like elongated shadows. What in the world are those? The engineer gasped, his complexion paling. I don't know, but it's like they're trying to lead us somewhere, I said, unease spiking within me. My gut told me this was a trap. But what kind? Just then, something massive swept past the sub, casting a monstrous shadow across our dwindling light. I gasped, and in the darkness, I could just make out a shape that was far too large to be a fish. The engineer blurted out, "That can't be real. We need to get out of here." "Not until we see what it wants," the captain replied, resolute. The shapes on the sonar grew more frantic, darting between us and whatever was lurking out there. Their erratic movement was unnerving, like they were trying to warn us or distract us. "Captain, we're losing power," the engineer shouted as another alarm blared. The lights flickered more violently now, threatening to plunge us into darkness once again. "Hold on," the captain yelled. "Try to stabilize the energy flow. We don't want to go down without a fight." Just then, the sub shuddered, and a sinking sensation enveloped me. We'd hit something. The lights momentarily dimmed, and I felt the air grow tense, charged with an electric fear. Before I could even come to terms with what was happening, the lights died completely that we were plunged into darkness. I could hear the water against the metal hull, the sound heavy and oppressive. "Get the emergency lights," the captain shouted. I fumbled in the dark, my heart racing. My fingers brushed over a control switch, and with a flick, the emergency lights cast a weak glow around us. But what I saw chilled me. The massive silhouette was directly in front of us, visible only by a faint outline against the light. I was frozen, unable to look away, feeling history's weight pressing against the sub. What is that? I breathed out, my voice trembling. That S when I saw it, a pair of glowing eyes staring straight back at me, reflecting the dim light. Get us out of here, I yelled, desperation slicing through me. But it wasn't just an object anymore. It was alive, and we were its prey. The silence felt thicker now, almost suffocating. My hands shook as I clutched the control panel. The glowing eyes still burned into my memory. I couldn't tell if what I saw was monstrous or just an illusion crafted by fear. Emergency lights are on, the captain called, urgency laced in his voice. Status update. Sonar's still going haywire, the engineer replied, panic edging into his tone. But he hesitated, his eyes darting to the screen. It's got something else now. The shapes, they're closer. Before I could process his words, I caught sight of the monitor. The silhouettes were no longer shadows. They zoomed in and out, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. I swallowed hard, painfully aware of how alone we were in the expansive ocean. Turn the lights a bit, the captain said. We need to see what we're dealing with. I fumbled with the control switch, cranking the emergency lights brighter. It illuminated the water outside, revealing hundreds of those elongated shapes swirling around us, gliding in synchronized movements. Despite their fish-like features, they moved with eerie purpose, mimicking a hypnotic dance. I held my breath, sensing an unnerving energy that brought goosebumps to my arms. What if they're trying to communicate? I muttered, though I couldn't tell if I believed it. Communication or not, they're not friendly, the engineer shot back, his voice nearly cracking. I could see his hands tremble as he returned his focus to the console. Can we boost power to the engines? The captain asked. We might need to just power through. Attempting to divert power now, the engineer replied, his fingers racing over the keys. But the sub shook violently again, sending us jolting forward. We just hit something again, I yelled, feeling the dread rise like bile in my throat. The emergency lights flickered ominously, and the shadows outside flared even brighter, as if the shapes were reacting to the commotion. I watched, helpless, as one of them broke from the circle and headed towards us. Brace for impact, the captain bellowed. But before we could react, the creature lunged. The glass of the sub's viewport rattled as something slammed into us, a thunderous crash that reverberated through the metal. The monitor flickered with static, and systems began shutting down one by one. In that moment of chaos, I caught another glimpse of those glowing eyes, now accompanied by a jagged maw that opened wide. Something primal shot through me. We were prey, and we were suddenly all too aware of our place in the food chain. Get the emergency propulsion, the captain shouted, but his words were swallowed by another shake, sending alarms blaring. I scrambled for the controls, my fingers slick with sweat. Then everything came to a halt. A deafening silence fell over the sub, as if the chaos outside had chosen to wait, holding its breath. I barely had time to register it before I spotted movement. Something was shifting outside, circling us once again, and it was much bigger than the others. This isn't good, I whispered, panic rising once more. My instinct screamed for us to turn and run. Prepare for impact again, the captain ordered, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. He wasn't just worried about the outside anymore. And that S when I heard it, a low hum, almost melodic, resonating through the hull of the sub. It felt alive, beckoning. What is that sound? I asked, dread flooding my voice. But I already feared I knew the answer. I didn't have time to dwell on the humming. The sub began to vibrate with a low thrum that matched the sound, pulsing through the metal walls. I could feel it deep in my bones, an unsettling rhythm that seemed to call out to the shapes outside. What is happening? The engineer shouted, his voice rising above the noise. I glanced at the control panel, it was flashing warnings in red. We were losing control. Hold on, the captain yelled, gripping the edge of his chair. I took a breath, summoning any calm I could give to the situation. Then, without warning, the lights flickered one last time before plunging us into darkness. The only light came from the glowing shapes outside, illuminating the water in an eerie greenish hue. Panic surged through me as alarms blared in the background. Activate emergency beacons, the captain ordered, his voice strained. I moved to comply, but my fingers fumbled on the controls. In the darkness, the humming grew louder, more insistent. It felt like the sub was responding to it, almost vibrating in sync with the sound. It was as if the very walls of the submarine were alive, encouraging us to listen. "Can you maintain the sonar?" I asked, hoping to regain some context. "I'm trying, but it's all messed up." The engineer spat back, his frustration palpable. I could see the shapes now scattering, a chaotic flurry around us, moving like a swarm. And then, amidst the panic, I noticed a change. One shape was breaking away and moving towards us. This one was larger than the others, its form more defined in the hazy light. "Look!" I shouted, pointing at the viewport. As it approached, the glowing eyes seemed to lock onto mine, the hum intensifying like a heartbeat. "It's assessing us," the captain said, barely audible over the noise. "Or it's deciding if we're a threat," I replied, fear edging into my voice. The creature's maw opened, revealing rows of jagged teeth. My mouth went dry as I wondered if we would become prey to a creature we couldn't even comprehend. "Everyone, stay calm," the captain commanded. But even he sounded uncertain. His resolve faltered as the bigger entity circled us slowly, almost curiously. Just then, I spotted something on its flank scales in a bizarre pattern, pulsating with strange colors. They reminded me of the bioluminescent organisms we studied, but far more complex. I felt a strange connection building, as though there might be more behind those eyes than mere hunger. And then I saw an opening in the creature's side, glowing softly. My heart raced. "Captain, it looks like it's trying to show us something. Like it's leading us somewhere. Or luring us into a trap," the engineer countered, fear coloring his words. "Do we take the chance?" I asked, my voice trembling. Before we could decide, the creature lunged again, crashing into our viewport. The impact sent us reeling, and I braced for another fight for survival. The sub groaned under the force, and I thought we might implode from the pressure. But just as quickly, the creature pulled back, and that strange hum intensified again. This time, it felt different, urgent. "What do we do?" I shouted, desperation creeping in. And that's when I noticed the emergency beacon start to flicker dimly, illuminating something behind the creature's silhouette. "A cavern entrance?" "Captain," I exclaimed, pointing frantically. "It's a way out. But what if it's a trap?" We had to choose. Now, the creature hovered close, its many eyes fixated on us as we weighed our options. I could feel the fear pulse through the cramped submarine, mingling with the strange energy from outside. It was as if the unknown was pressing in on all sides. "Captain, we can't stay here," I said, urgency creeping into my voice. "If we don't move, we'll be trapped." "Agreed," he replied reluctantly. He glanced back at the engineer. "Can you restore some power?" "I'm doing my best," he shouted, hands flying over the controls. "But the system's fried. We might not be able to maneuver effectively." The creature retreated a bit, still watching us, its massive form casting shadows on the walls of the sub. In that moment, I felt it a strange, almost magnetic pull urging me toward the glowing cavern behind it. Was it my imagination, or was the creature trying to help us? "Captain, look." I pointed again. "It seems like it wants us to follow. We could get out of here, or it could lead us to our doom," the engineer muttered, skepticism dripping from his voice. We had to make a decision, and fast. The humming grew louder, vibrating through the metal, merging with the thudding of my heart. "Let us take the gamble," the captain finally decided, his voice firm. "We might not have another choice. Prepare for a dash for the cave entrance." I nodded, adrenaline surging. "On my mark, everyone." The creature drew nearer again, almost expectantly. I could see its large, luminous body slipping through the water without effort. It was as if the darkness of the deep feared it, parted around it. 3, 2, 1, go," I shouted. With a swift motion, I yanked the emergency controls and pushed the throttle forward. Nothing happened. The engine sputtered and coughed, responding sluggishly as I wrestled with the instruments. "It's not engaging," the engineer yelled. "We're dead in the water." Panic rose within me. "We'll never make it." Then the creature made a move I didn't expect. It brushed up against the side of the sub, its scales glistening as if sending energy into the hull. The humming intensified to a near-deafening level, and for a moment, I thought I could hear words within it, a deep resonance. "Hold on," I yelled again. It's powering us somehow." The submarine jolted, and the blinking lights on the control panel steadied. A reassuring hum spiraled through the vessel as the engine roared to life. Let us go, the captain shouted, and I pushed the throttle again, feeling the sub surge forward, hurtling toward the cavernous opening. But as we approached, something unexpected happened. The cave entrance started to close. Faster, I cried, frantically gripping the controls. Brace for impact. Before I could process it, the fortified walls of the cave loomed large before us. The last shreds of light flickered out behind us as we surged into the darkness, and I was left wondering if we had just escaped or if we had stumbled into something far worse. Keep moving, the captain urged, his voice grave. Then the sub shuddered violently as the creature collided with us one last time, and everything went white. I could hardly wrap my head around what had just happened. One moment, we were in peril, and the next, engulfed in blinding light and silence. When my vision cleared, I realized we were inside the cave, but it felt entirely different. The walls shimmered with faint blue light, pulsing rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Is everyone all right? The captain asked, trying to steady his voice. I nodded, still disoriented. I think so. What about the creature? I don't see it, he replied, scanning the depths beyond our sub. But I don't like this. We could be anywhere now. The engineer, still frantically tapping on the control panel, muttered, I lost contact with the surface. We're completely blind. A chill crawled down my spine. We were isolated, lost in this featureless cavern. The sound of the engine echoed against the walls, and without warning, a low rumble reverberated through the water. What was that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Nothing good, the captain said, eyes narrowing. We need to check our systems. If we can't re-establish power, we might be stuck here for a while. Reluctantly, I turned my attention to the console. I tried rebooting everything, but found it futile. Panic throbbed at my temples. I can't get any signals. It's like the cave is blocking everything. The rumble grew louder, seemingly coming from deeper within the cavern. The lights on the sub flickered sporadically, as if they were afraid. We need to figure out what that noise is, I said, heart racing. Agreed. But we have to be cautious, the captain cautioned. We don't know what is lurking in the dark or if that creature is still nearby. As if on cue, the pulsing light intensified. I blinked against the glare, squinting to catch a glimpse of whatever was causing it. That S when I saw it a massive formation ahead, like a mountain rising from the ocean floor. It sparkled with the same blue glow, casting eerie shadows. What the hell is that? The engineer whispered, hanging back from the window. I think it's the source of the energy. I was cut off by another violent tremor that shook the sub, much stronger than before. Hold on, yelled the captain. As we steadied ourselves, the formation shifted. Then I realized something unsettling. It wasn't stationary, it was alive. I caught a glimpse of undulating limbs and twisting tendrils extending from the mass, almost like they were reaching out toward us. This isn't good, I shouted, adrenaline flooding my system. We need to find a way out now? But as I turned back to the controls, the lights suddenly went out, plunging us into darkness. The only sound that followed was the growl of the unknown creature echoing through the water. My heart raced. What are we going to do? There was a hollow silence. And that S when something tapped on the hull, sending a wave of dread crashing over me. Someone S out there, I breathed, panic flooding my veins. The vibrations continued, a rhythmic tapping that filled me with dread. I gripped the edge of my seat as the low growl echoed again, closer this time. My heart raced, and I squinted into the darkness, but all I could see was the faint blue glow from the surroundings where the creature hid. Is it moving? The engineer whispered, his face pale in the dim light. It feels alive. It is, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to do something. Panic clawed at my chest. I could sense the uncertainty in the captain's eyes too. Suddenly, the beeping from the sonar cut through the tension, piercing the haunting silence. The sonar's back online, the engineer exclaimed, fingers dancing over the keys in a rush of hope. The screen flickered to life, revealing shapes swimming around us in chaotic formations like fish, but twisted, warped. What are those? I gasped, squinting at the screen. They're drawn to us, the engineer muttered, his voice shaking. Then the tapping on the hull escalated. It was no longer rhythmic, but erratic, and my mind raced. Was it the same creature from before? Or something even more menacing? Everyone, hold on tight, the captain said firmly. We have to try to power through and get out of here. I watched as the glowing light pulsed from the cavern. I felt a strange tug at the back of my mind, a call to explore beyond the fear. I hesitated, half wanting to press forward and half terrified of what waited for us. Could it be a trap? Can we make it to that glowing formation? I asked, pointing. It seems like the source of all this. Are you insane? The engineer shot back. What if it's the creature's home? But before a decision could be made, the lights flickered again, and the sub jolted violently. It was as if the very water had turned against us. I was thrown against my seat, and alarms blared throughout the control room. Brace for impact, the captain shouted as the walls seemed to close in. The glimmering blue grew intense. The shapes outside swirled around us like a storm. In that chaos, the sub lurched forward, caught by some unseen force pulling us closer to that glowing entity. We're being dragged. I shouted over the din. Cut the engines. We have to let it take us. The captain commanded. We may not have a choice. I fumbled with the controls while the engineer struggled to keep systems online. As soon as I cut the engines, the violent shaking eased. We floated, suspended in the water, as the blue glow enveloped us. The creature emerged, its silhouette grand and almost majestic against the luminescent backdrop. It moved towards us, curiously, almost as if assessing our very existence. What do we do? The engineer whispered, eyes wide. Can it understand us? Maybe, I murmured, not entirely sure what to think. My fingers felt icy as I reached for the porthole. The pulsing lights seemed to synchronize with my heartbeat, almost hypnotic. The larger entity drifted gracefully toward us, and I felt a strange calm wash over me. What if it wants to communicate? I dared to say. Another tremor shook the sub, but this time, it felt more like a pulsar response. Something deep inside me urged me to listen, to connect. It's alive, I breathed, realization dawning on me. The whole cave, it's alive. With each pulse, I felt like the boundary between us began to blur, a sense of understanding overwhelming my apprehension. Could it be possible that what we feared most was simply another form of life? I took a deep breath, an instinct inside urging me to open a channel. If you can understand us, we mean no harm. I didn't know why I said it, but there it was, a beacon of intent amidst my fear. The glowing eyes fixed on mine, and in that moment, a new sound emerged, a harmonizing echo that reverberated through my bones, a sound not of hostility, but recognition. It was as if the entity was acknowledging our presence, a dialogue unfolding without words. But just then, a loud crack echoed through the cavern as the cave walls began to shift, threatening to collapse. The thrumming became a roaring presence. Can it help us? The engineer pleaded, panic rising once more. Before I could answer, the entity dove toward the cave's walls, and for a fleeting moment, I could have sworn the pulsing light intensified, almost transforming. It was as though it wanted us to follow, to guide us out of the impending chaos. Now, the captain shouted, and we pushed the throttle forward with renewed resolve. Just as the cave began to close in, the entity surged through the water, creating a burst that cleared a path. With adrenaline surging, we followed, racing through the narrowing passageway, feeling the ocean shift and churn around us. I gripped the controls, glancing back to see the cave's south walls constrict close behind us. Finally, with a final push from the entity, we shot forward into the open ocean. The light of the day filled our view as the surface broke above us. We were out alive but changed. As I gasped in the fresh air, my heart thundered. There was so much I didn't understand. What we had encountered below would linger, a question mark hanging in the depths of my mind. But as I watched the horizon, I felt a strange sense of peace in the unknown. Some questions are meant to remain unanswered, twisting like shadows beneath the waves. I don't think I'll ever forget, but perhaps the mystery is where the truth lies, just out of reach.